Good morning and welcome to another September 2022 video insight from Hendy Consulting on the state of the flat panel display industry, the $150 billion industry that serves all our needs. And today I wanted to talk to you all because Dr. Choi from SDC got up and made some really provocative remarks about the future positioning of emissives in display technology and also the future of his own business. And I thought those were really worth sharing with everybody because it means an increasing role and dominance for SDC in the marketplace. If you're interested in learning more about the top 4 display players in the $150 billion display industry, then I will provide a link below on my recent Total Talk and video cast on the top floor players, their characteristics and their behaviors. But for now, let's talk a little bit about the top 4 and about Dr. Choi's remarks. The 4 big companies in the display industry are the 2 Chinese and the 2 Koreans. The industry revenue leader used to be SDC, based in Korea, and this is the one where we're going to talk about Dr. Choi. It is by far the leader in OLED panels for smartphones. So if you have an Apple phone with an OLED, or if you have a Galaxy phone with an OLED, there's a really good chance that that comes from SDC. LG Display, which I helped earlier be involved with when it was a joint venture with Philips, is the number 2 in Korea. And they're also a very powerful innovator to the industry and the leader in OLEDs for television with a product that's called White OLED. So those are the top 2 Koreans, and they're in a neck and neck race now with 2 very powerful Chinese. BOE, which is actually based all over China, which you can basically say is the broad agnostic tech follower, all technologies, fabs all across China, and is actually the industry capacity leader and actually now the revenue leader for the industry. And then my favorite from a strategy point of view, which is China Star, based in Shenzhen. They've made some very careful select decisions, but they've also been building up their position, so they're the number 2 in the Chinese industry. So what was it that was so fundamentally shocking about Dr. Choi's remarks about the future of SDC that I thought that worth mentioned this short video cast? Well, the first was that he fundamentally believes that emissive displays, so OLEDs, QD OLEDs, micro LEDs, can grow from their current $40 to $45 billion level, which is about a third of the total display market, to being 100 billion or more within a near future, as he puts it. And he outlined in his talk, which is really worth a watch, I've given you the YouTube reference down below, he talked about all of the technologies that Samsung plans to introduce to the market that will be part of this pathway. And most provocatively for me was his final point, which he believes that he can put SDC into the $500 billion club. So that means he thinks SDC will be a $50 billion revenue company. Now, given SDC has also been profitable and more profitable than most of the display players, this is a huge statement. Today's display industry is between $150 and $160 billion. And so he's talking about SDC representing fully 1/3 of total industry revenues. So is this believable? Is he dreaming a bridge too far, or is there a way of getting to the $50 billion that he aims for? Well, let's say today SDC is a $25 to $30 billion player. They've just completely exited the LCD market, but their OLED position has been strong and slightly recovering. So around that sort of level is what we would expect. Now, there is price erosion, as you can imagine, in the OLED smartphone market, and with the market share that SDC has, and the number of Chinese other players wanting their business, in particular LGD and BOE, so LGD Korean, BOE is Chinese, then actually their base business, one can only say you'd expect to see some revenue erosion over the period of time that he's talking about. Now, Dr. Choi then is talking about QD OLED, which is the use of quantum dots as a color converter based on a blue trifluorescent layer, being a fundamentally amazing new color technology, and certainly all of the colleagues and friends I have that have seen it are testimony to that. But you add all of that up, even based on 90k sheets at Gen 8, and you can only get to sort of around the $5 to $6 billion revenue level. You take one of DSEC's fairly optimistic forecasts on the future of foldables and rollables, maybe 40 to 50 million units at let's say $100 a number of years out, and you can add in another chunk. Moreover, as people who might have read my material recently, SDC, along with Ulvac, has just finally cracked the way to get to vertical fine metal mask evaporation at Gen 8. And this has been a 10-year project of the display industry. And finally, they've got there. But let's say they put in 30K sheets in the first instance of that line. Over this timeline, that's probably already a challenge. And then you get a small chunk of maybe a couple of $1 billion of revenue from that. Now, they make quite a big deal in Dr. Choi's talk about the role of micro-LED, and here he's then talking about near to eye. But for me, the only way I can make the numbers anywhere near work is to actually talk about transferring the business that's currently at the parent company, Samsung Electronics. And I can only imagine the amount of politics that there is involved in that, in getting that to happen. But that, I do believe, could reach close on a $10 billion level, if they're lucky. Now, based on three predicated changes. Firstly, die sizes have to fall to around the 10 by 10 level over the time horizon. Secondly, they have to be able to be transferable and manufacturable at that size, and SDC has to then price down the product, the wall, commensurately with prices in line with the LED costs once this has happened. And if you get all of those three things to happen, then you could actually talk about a close on $10 billion business if they're the market leader, maybe $5 billion if they have to share it with somebody else, but at least a sizable chunk of revenue in micro-LED revenues. So maybe that's, again, a stretch. Dr. Choi also talks about rolling out transparent, and this is something Samsung has wanted to do for a very long time. Years back, there were long discussions that transparent revenues could be $50 billion. And all of us looked at that and said it will never happen, because its primary aim of the marketplace is for retail point of sale. And those marketplaces are simply not that size today. And so there's an awful lot of market development work needed to develop a transparent industry at enough scale to make that work. Dr. Choi also talks about fundamental technology innovations in organic photodiodes that allow for multi-fingerprint sensing. And even, let's say, that's a reasonable portion of BOM of the display and implemented on some portion of the total OLED output at SDC, then that could be a revenue increment. But even with all of the things that are there, I still don't get there. And that's even based on some wild success of some of the micro-LED platforms. So do I think the dream is a bridge too far? I think it's a little bit of a stretch for me, but that is the nature of aspirational dreams. And certainly what would be amazing out of this would be then the role of the other players if SDC themselves want to get to being 50 billion. How will LGD respond to this? And how will the two major Chinese in return choose to compete with this amazing onslaught of technology innovation from the top Korean? So that is my thoughts for today. And certainly, if you're interested in talking more about how Hendy Consulting can work with you in thinking about display insights, then there are two major programs that my business offers. The first one is a retainer service for general managers of display businesses, display materials businesses, and display equipment businesses in helping you validate your market approach, your competitive position, your pricing, and your partnership options, and also to try and use my contacts and the contacts of my guys to help you also think about breakthrough growth ideas. It's an investment from your side to give you that extra help from a friend in the industry. Alternatively, the other thing we've done for many years now as part of our 2 decades work in displays is underwritten market entry decisions and or investments into new factories and new technologies. So if you want to head in that direction and you want somebody to offer a management consulting service that gives you a sophisticated understanding of the market and technology risks that could be used in a major corporate or with international VCs to help underline your decision, then please come and talk to us. So SDC has really outlined a fundamentally amazing growth story that they aim for. And we think it's a stretch, but certainly there will be scope for them to innovate further to reach towards that 50 billion. He certainly didn't put a timeline on this situation, but we wish SDC all the best, and we wish our friends at LGD all the best in competing with them. And the future innovation of the display industry going forward.